the sharp click of shoes hitting polished marble echoes through the empty hallway. To an outsider, it's just someone walking. To him, it's the sound of a condemned man climbing the steps to the guillotine. He can't bring himself to admire the artwork on the walls or the obscene luxury of the 27th floor. His eyes are fixed on the floor, but he doesn't even see the tiles. All he sees is the uncontrollable trembling of his own hands. He stops before a mirror and tries to adjust his cheap suit. The fabric is coarse, bunching at the shoulders, making him look even smaller, like a child playing dress-up as a businessman. The AC is ice cold, yet sweat streaks hot and heavy down his temples. He is the underdog, the dreamer from the garage, about to step into the lion's den that devours the world. The door opens with a heavy click. That office isn't a conference room, it's a glass throne floating over the city. The tycoon waiting for him doesn't stand. He sits, nearly disappearing into the vastness of his expensive leather chair, a fortress of ego and authority. The power player doesn't even look up right away. He calmly finishes his cigar, puffing out a thick smoke that blurs the young man's vision, and checks his gold watch with practiced boredom. Every second of silence is a blow. He makes the boy feel as if simply being there is a divine favor that can never be repaid. When the young man finally opens his mouth to speak, his voice cracks. It comes out raspy, small. He speaks of an idea, of discs traveling through the mail, of a future where no one would have to leave home to dream. He hands over his life's work, his entire soul poured into slightly crumpled papers laid out on the massive mahogany desk. The silence following the proposal isn't one of analysis, it's one of cruelty. The tycoon leans forward, but only to laugh harder. When he hears the valuation of the deal, he simply stands up and lets out a roar of laughter. It isn't a laugh of joy. It's a piercing mockery that bounces off the glass walls and cuts into the boy's soul like blades of ice. The tycoon walks to the window, points to the horizon, and says without looking back, "You want to sell me a fantasy? Look out there. The world belongs to giants. You're just a mistake, an ant trying to teach an elephant how to walk." Shame burns the young man's face, a red stain of humiliation that feels like it will never fade. He gathers his papers with clumsy movements. One of them falls, and he has to bend down, almost kneeling at the giant's feet, to recover his discarded dreams. He leaves the room with a weeping soul, feeling the weight of every pitying look from the employees in the hall. But when he steps into the elevator and the metal doors slide shut, something shifts. The reflection in the mirror shows a slumped man, but the trembling in his hands finally stops. The soul's cry hardens into a cold, sharp void. He looks at his own face and makes a pact. He would never hear that man's laughter again, but he would certainly hear his cry. He didn't know it yet, but the empire he had just left behind had just been handed an expiration date. Join us, subscribe to the channel, and help us grow. Your presence here ensures that we will continue to bring you content that challenges the obvious. Take a moment now to like this video and turn on the notification bell. The lights of the big city fade away in the rearview mirror of a battered old car. The young man returns to the only place where he doesn't have to pretend to be a giant, his garage. The contrast is cruel. Instead of marble, the floor is cracked concrete. Instead of the aroma of expensive cigars, the air smells of motor oil and old paper. He sits in a creaking plastic chair, a world away from the leather throne on the 27th floor. He switches off the lights, and in the dark, the silence is shattered by an echo that won't let him be. The laugh. It returns, louder, sharper, mocking every cent he doesn't have. That night he doesn't cry. He simply opens a notebook and writes a single word on the first page. Wait. The blind giant. Meanwhile, at the top of the world, the powerful man has forgotten the boy's name before the sun even sets. To the giant, the world is static. He believes the empire he built is made of eternal stone. He continues to celebrate record sales, toasting with crystal flutes, while he looks down and sees only subjects. He doesn't notice the ground is trembling. He ignores the signs that the wind has shifted direction. Arrogance has created a fog around his glass office. He is so busy listening to his own voice that he cannot hear the sound of technology advancing like a silent avalanche. To him, the young man was nothing more than a bad joke that served to liven up a dull afternoon. The solitary obsession. Months turn into years. The young man now lives in a world of envelopes, stamps, and lines of code that no one else understands. His friends drift away. They say he's chasing a ghost. That face in the giant is financial suicide. He grows thin. His eyes sink into deep shadows, but the trembling in his hands never returns. Every time exhaustion threatens to break him, he closes his eyes and summons that scene on the 27th floor. He uses humiliation as a battery. He isn't just building a delivery company, he's building a trap. He has learned that he doesn't need to be bigger than the elephant to bring it down. He just needs to pull the ground from beneath its feet. The years in the garage have finally borne fruit. The young man is no longer just a dreamer. He has something real. But in a moment of weakness, or perhaps a lingering shred of hope, he decides to knock on the giant's door one more time. He doesn't want revenge yet. He wants a partnership. He returns to that building, but this time there is no cold sweat. He enters the glass room with a solid plan. We handle the digital. You keep the physical stores. The powerful man barely looks up from his profit reports. He doesn't even stand. With a wave of his hand, like someone swatting away a bothersome fly, he refuses again. He doesn't know it, but that was the last chance fate gave him to save his empire. When the young man leaves the room this time, he isn't slumped. He is standing tall. The silent pact made in the elevator has now become a scheduled public execution. The world begins to shift. Small groups of people start to prefer the envelope arriving in the mail over the trip to the giant's luxurious store. The power player sees the numbers drop by 1%, then 2%. He laughs in board meetings. It's just a phase. People love our stores. They love the smell of the popcorn and the crowded shelves. He refuses to see that the empire is bleeding. While the giant sleeps on a bed of gold, the ant is wide awake, infiltrating every home, every living room, one customer at a time. The crack in the glass on the 27th floor is so thin that no one sees it, but the sound of the snap has already begun to echo for those who know how to listen. Arrogance has a price, and the invoice has just arrived. The giant discovers that the boy he humiliated wasn't just delivering DVDs. He was stealing the world's attention. Suddenly, the Empire stores, once vibrant and full, start to look like museums of a forgotten era. The powerful man tries to react, tries to copy the boy's model, but it's too late. You cannot build a life raft while the ship is already split in half. He looks out his office window and, for the first time, he doesn't feel pride. He feels the first breath of a fear he has never known. That young man adjusting his cheap suit in the elevator, the man who swallowed his tears and chose conviction, has a name the world would learn to revere. Reed Hastings. And that garage-born idea, the one dismissed as too small and insignificant, went by the name Netflix. On the other side of the table, shrouded in the smoke of his cigar and protected by glass walls in Dallas, Texas, stood the giant. His name was John Antioco, the man who commanded Blockbuster. In that year of 2000, Blockbuster wasn't just a company, it was a global religion. They had 9,000 temples scattered across the planet. Nearly 60,000 employees bowed to their will. John Antioco looked at the numbers and saw a profit of $800 million coming solely from late fees. They profited from the mistakes and the unhappiness of their customers. And it was to this monster of arrogance that Reed Hastings offered his soul for $50 million. Antioco didn't see a future there. He saw a bad joke. He didn't know that by refusing that handshake, he was signing the death warrant for his entire empire. While Antioco celebrated absolute dominance in the following years, Reed Hastings' Netflix began its infiltration. In 2004, the ground beneath Blockbuster's headquarters truly began to crack. Reed wasn't just sending red envelopes through the mail, he was changing the chemistry of human patience. He introduced the concept that entertainment should serve man, and not the other way around. The irony is that Blockbuster had every chance. They had the capital, the brand, and the logistics. But Antioco's arrogance was a veil that prevented him from seeing the obvious. In 2007, the masterstroke arrived. Netflix launched streaming. The ant stopped walking and began to fly. The digital world started to devour the plastic shelves and the smell of stale popcorn in the rental stores. The empire that had laughed at $50 million now watched its market value plummet by billions, while desperately, and too late, trying to copy the model of that boy in the cheap suit. The end didn't come with a bang, but with the somber sound of doors being locked for the last time. In September 2010, the empire declared bankruptcy. John Antioco, the master strategist, had already been removed from his position. leaving behind only the ruins of a blinded vision. The company that was once worth billions was reduced to almost nothing. Today, if you travel to the small town of Bend, Oregon, you will find a ghost. It is the last blockbuster store in the world, a lonely museum of an era that refused to evolve. Meanwhile, Reed Hastings' Netflix has become a powerhouse worth hundreds of billions, shaping the culture of every nation on Earth. John Antiocho's laughter has been silenced forever in the empty corridors of Dallas. Reed Hastings' pact in the elevator was fulfilled. He didn't just survive the humiliation. He built a new world upon the ashes of those who mocked him. The giant fell not because he was weak, but because he believed he would never need to change. And the ant won because he knew that time is the only judge that does not accept bribes. The story you just heard isn't just about DVDS, algorithms, or the collapse of a retail giant. It is a lesson about the most silent and dangerous force in the universe: underestimation. The world is full of John Antiochos, people who believe the peak they stand upon is eternal, who look at the new and the small through the filter of mockery. But the reality is that progress doesn't need your applause to advance. It happens in the dark, in damp garages, in minds that have turned shame into fuel. The unseen effect is exactly that, the tiny crack no one notices until the entire building comes crashing down. A call to the viewer. Perhaps today you are the boy in the cheap suit. Perhaps you've just walked out of a boardroom, an interview, or a family conversation, feeling the weight of a mocking laugh echoing in your soul. If that is you, remember the elevator in Dallas. Humiliation is a crossroads. You can use it to build a gravestone for your dreams, or you can use it to build an empire that will make your critics irrelevant. The giant doesn't fall because of the small one's strength. He falls because he refuses to see that the ground beneath his feet has shifted. Closing John Antiocho got the laugh. Reed Hastings got the future. And you, what will you do with the silence that follows your next defeat? In the end, history doesn't remember who laughed first, but who had the conviction to stay awake while the rest of the world slept in its own arrogance. This is the unseen effect, and from now on you will never look at an ant the same way again. Thank you for walking with us this far. Time is your most valuable resource, and we are honored that you chose to spend it diving into this narrative. If this content sparked something within you, don't leave without subscribing to the channel. Your subscription is the fuel that keeps our search for great stories alive. Help us grow so that the voice of the unseen effect can reach even further.